My name is Melissa Ludin. I am the statewide coalition and relations advocate for the ACLU of Wisconsin. I've been with the ACLU for 5.5 years. Initially started with the organization coming on board as a regional organizer for Smart Justice. As an organizer, it was very targeted work, trying to end crimeless revocation, either trying to get a bill through a legislation passed or trying to get the administration to change the rules of supervision and the process of which they do revocations and sanctions. From there, I was promoted to a statewide coalition and relations advocate, kind of stepping out of just that organizing. Many of my strengths are strategic partnerships, maintaining long-term relationships with people, businesses, nonprofits, organizations. So that has been my primary role. I'm happy to say that I have been really successful at maintaining many relationships since I've been really in this work for almost 9 years. Many of those have been with organizations that are led by directly impacted people, like ex-incarcerated people organizing and free. But also, we've kind of really pivoted to service organizations, businesses, anything really that touches people that are directly impacted, employers, that kind of thing. The real goal in my work tends to be more so community engagement, really changing the public's perception and knowledge on who's going to prison, what are they going to prison for. And some of that work has really led me to understand, I think, our culture in America. I've learned tends to be one of, judgment, oftentimes shame. We gossip, we really put down people, we punish people. And I think that's led me to the question of, do we really like human beings? One of the things that I've been kind of battling with as I was going through this is my youngest son's father had been brutally murdered in Milwaukee a couple of years ago. And he was somebody that was in the movement to end mass incarceration, another real strong advocate. The unfortunate thing I think with that circumstance is I'm somebody that champions women's incarceration, education. We don't need to be incarcerating a lot of women, from advocacy to addressing the needs for women before they get into prison. I had to really sit with the fact that my son's dad was murdered by a woman who is now serving a long prison sentence in Wisconsin. The reason I bring that up is because I knew going into this, I would really have to do some self-reflection. It's really kind of allowed me to see in my own healing that, if I'm going to continue to do the work, and I believe in restorative practices and restorative justice, how am I going to be able to see the humanness in this person that took his life? And I was able to kind of face that as I went to a prison that's called Wisconsin Resource Center to go in to speak to women graduating from like the trauma-informed restorative program there. And she happened to be there and she was sitting right in front of me. That was unknown to security. And I knew that I had two choices in that moment. I was either going to leave and not and prevent what would have been a reaction that would have been a horrible result for many things. But my friend grabbed me and just said, let's pray, because this is more of a spiritual moment. And I just prayed and said, whatever I was about to say when I came in here, I might not be able to say, but I need your strength to speak through me in this moment. And I was able to do that. And I was able to actually kind of, as they were leaving out, I shook her hand. And whether or not she remembered me from the court hearing. But I think in that moment, when I was speaking to her and the other women in that room, there was a part of me that saw the human in her. She was a young girl. And as unfortunate as that is, that experience going into this allowed me to really look at when we talk about the things that we were learning in here, especially with responsibility of leadership, the emotional intelligence piece and self-reflection. I really took that upon myself, I would say, even in this past year, of how can I develop that? And so I think these skills that Just Leadership taught us here, as well as some of the things that I'm working on in my own personal development, really allowed me to see more of me. What are my triggers? This has allowed me, I would say, to be much more of a listener. So active listening, I would say, has really become one of my strengths. In the past, I've tended to be somebody that was really opinionated. I can talk a lot, I can take space, and coming to realize like my perspective and thoughts is just one, and everybody's matters because all of our experiences are different, and it's going to take us coming together to have that understanding of why do we all think the way that we do on certain topics, to really dig deep, I think, to understand like so much of how we are in society starts with us. and how we think of ourselves. And if we don't like ourselves, that comes out of us, and we're not going to like other people. It's definitely my goal to become a senior director of strategic partnerships and relationships. The reason I say that is because, again, I see a lot of our work, even with organizing, as we all can't do this ourselves. We can't do this by one organization. We need partnerships and organizations to collectively be involved, but have a clear understanding of what does that mean when we partner. I think I have been able to build strong relationships with that clear understanding. For example, one of the things that we obviously do with ACLU is we do like a lot of know your rights training. We are tailoring our know your rights to specific groups of people. One of the things I'm working on is rebuilding our know your rights training to be specific to women in reentry and to their needs and to the things that they think will best fit them. And I partnered in doing that with another individual who does a reentry program in that institution to be able to teach women really like the technology and getting them updated on like how advanced our technology is and getting them trained so they can use that with some other things as they go into the community. And I think once we can figure out that way, if it's going to be, we're going to share resources, we're going to share funds with direct service organizations, we're going to be really clear of what are some of the policy needs that you see that we could support so that you can provide services much better. And so I think for us, really just trying to change the game for how we work in that coalition. The other thing that I'm currently doing that has really changed how I bring a team together in a coalition space. I've been human-centered in that when I come in, I do, my leadership is human-centered. But with this, when we look at like bringing together people with shared values, really encouraging the heart, how does that show up when we're trying to have a campaign meeting or a check-in? And one of the things I was able to cultivate within ACLU in doing integrative type of work is having people that are part of our work from different departments at our organization coming in and just saying, hey, what do I need to know about you that I don't? What drives you? What do you really enjoy about working on a team? What do you hope to get out of this? And also, most importantly, how do you want to be engaged? And I think that allowed me to see some people want to be part of the strategic process, building out the timeline, creating storytelling with our communications department. And then we have some people that really just want to be part of the execution. You guys put it together, figure that all out, and then we're going to do it on the back end. But also knowing like who are the creators as well, who can really, if we're going to do a PowerPoint or give a presentation, assist us with that. But we also have people that are tapped in. We have a therapist that's on our team, different things. But anyhow, that has allowed us to come together much better. And two, like in building out our campaign, making sure that we're celebrating in our milestones. That's not something that we've often done in the past, but really building in the celebration of things that we're doing. During our check-in meeting, really finding ways of, this is something I asked when we had our meeting while I was traveling here, like ask the team, how can we celebrate each other every 2 weeks in this meeting? Let me know, what are your thoughts to some of that? So I think for me, and helping to lead this space and into my other meetings is really letting them see they have the answers, kind of part of the coaching that we learned here. They have the answers and I want to know, and what gets you excited, because then they're going to help, that's going to help drive our work. And then we all get to accomplish the same goal of what we're trying to do. So I would definitely say, based on things I've observed, even watching Deanna or people that are part of Just Leadership, is really changing the game in the federal government. I think that is really relevant. I think Deanna has made it clear. We've seen it being a part of the cohort that we need to care about the federal government. It does impact our states, even if some of those impacts might take 10 years. If we take, for example, what was shared with us with the recent changes with HUD, how HUD cannot go beyond 3 years to do a background check. We need to know that so that when we can be in our own states, we can hold those departments accountable. Not let them take long to implement that, but know like, hey, we're aware of this change. Therefore, we want to know what you're doing to start implementing that process. Also, I think one of the things that I think is really super strategic is not only with the Just Us Coordinating Council, but the leaders that are across the country. I think having that type of capacity and being able to call all of us to action, I think is huge, and that's really beneficial. I think that's one thing that Just Leadership does stand very strongly in. But also, I think, Deanna sets the example of, if you're not at the table, you create your own. And I think that benefit of the Just Us Coordinating Council is really clear on telling people in the federal government and the officials they work with, this is how we want things to get done. So I definitely think they have changed the game in how processes, policies, and things are administered, and then how that can impact us on the state side. I would definitely say, I think for me, like the most important thing that I really gained clarity is the importance of having a mission and vision, my own personal mission and vision. I have been through many trainings where they don't emphasize it's got to start here. It needs to be personal because we can't be effective if we don't have ourselves together. But most importantly, how are we in our private life? What does that look like? Because that is going to be really telling to the responsibility of our leadership of what we do behind closed doors. And I think that speaks to one of my values, which is integrity. But the fact that they really emphasize that, and for us to see this whole process holistically, because again, how are we behind closed doors is going to show up in a public space. And that goes back to the fact of that's why it's emphasized, like that self-reflection, emotional intelligence. And then I think next to that, just to add in, because I think it's so powerful, the way that we were to practice peer coaching. That has been a game changer, I think, in my family, how I work with my children, my partner, to people I work with in the community. It's been a different model for people who are directors where I work now, and just kind of change, like, what is their current managing style. And I also see the benefit of I want to be coached, help me find the answer instead of giving it to me. So I'll also like letting those know. So definitely those would be hand in hand.